You know that feeling when Apple drops something that looks familiar but somehow feels completely refined? That's exactly where we are with the Apple Watch Series 11. Familiar design, smarter features, and finally, a battery that doesn't quit 70% of the way through your day. What's up everyone, the one and only here, and in today's video we're taking a closer look at Apple's newest flagship smartwatch. I've been wearing it non-stop pretty much since it came out, testing its endurance, its new health upgrades, and seeing how it stacks up next to last year's Series 10. Spoiler, some of these subtle changes make a really big difference. We're going to unbox it, talk finishes, new features, and that long-awaited jump to 24-hour battery life. And hey, if you're someone who loves Apple Watch bands, watch faces, or just the watches themselves, come hang out with thousands of fellow bandaholics in our Discord community. Links down below in the description. Guys, let's not waste any more time, so sit back, grab your favorite band, and let's get right into it. Alright ladies and gents, so real quick, let's go ahead and unbox this bad boy. So we have debossed Apple Watch branding up top in our familiar white rectangular Apple Watch box. We have nothing alongside our four sides, but on the bottom we have serial number information as well as these two little pull tabs. So undo those and we see Apple hit us with their classic box within a box technique. We have our watch and band separated, and if you order directly through Apple, you can customize whatever band you want to your liking. But the main star of the show is our watch. And so up top, we see this cool holographic-like image of our Series 11 watch. It also has two green pull tabs at the bottom. So let's go ahead and rip those off, open the lid, and voila! There it is, nestled in its protective sleeve, and to its right is our envelope that reads Designed by Apple in California, which houses our quick start guide as well as our charging puck. But noticeably absent is a wall adapter, so make sure you have one if you don't already. And now, let's finally slide our watch out of its sleeve, and there it is, the cleanest it will ever be. So just press the digital crown down for a few seconds and the Apple logo will soon appear and your device will be ready for pairing. So now let's cover pricing and availability real quick. So the Series 11 comes in your choice of an aluminum variant or a titanium variant. The aluminum variants come in four different colors. That's jet black, rose gold, silver, or the brand new space gray, which is this darker, sleeker twist to silver that I really like. Now for the aluminum variants, they start at $399 USD. That's good for a 42mm variant. That's the smaller version in a GPS only model. For $30 more, you can opt to get the bigger size, that being the 46mm, again, a GPS only model. Now, if you're one of those that likes to have a dedicated line on your Apple Watch for in the event that your iPhone ever dies or you have it far away from you, you can opt to get the GPS Plus cellular version so that you can add a line to your Apple Watch. Those versions add $100 to the base pricing. Now the Series 11 does also come in a titanium variant, and all the titanium versions are going to be GPS plus cellular. You cannot get a titanium version in just GPS. And for the titanium models, they come in your choice of natural titanium, slate titanium, and gold titanium, all looking very nice. The titanium variants start at $699 for a 42mm variant and $749 for the 46mm variant. Now keep in mind that depending on which band you choose, your starting price could go up or down, namely if you opt for one of the metal bands such as the Link bracelet or the Milanese loop. So to break it all down, the aluminum variants start at $400 and the titanium variants start at $700. Alright, so at first glance, the Apple Watch Series 11 looks almost identical to the Series 10. Same sleek body, same thin frame, same edge-to-edge display. I think you get the idea. But spend a little time with it, and you start to feel what Apple changed beneath the surface. This isn't a redesign, it's a refinement. The biggest visual refresh comes from the new space gray aluminum finish, a tone that sits perfectly between silver's brightness and jet black's depth. It's subtle, versatile, and photographs beautifully under any light. It's subtle, versatile, and looks gorgeous underneath any kind of light. If you're more into the premium vibe, the titanium variants still come in natural, gold, and slate, now built entirely from 100% recycled titanium, making this Apple's most eco-friendly lineup yet. Where things really improve though is durability. Apple's aluminum models now use ION-X glass that's twice as scratch resistant, and you can feel that peace of mind the first time you brush against a countertop or gym machine. That was always one of my biggest gripes with the aluminum variants before this series, and that is that every time the screen just happened to just scratch up almost instantly. So now at least the screen should be a lot more durable. Add in the sapphire crystal back and meticulous matching, and the Series 11 feels like what Apple does best, the perfect fusion of craftsmanship, comfort, and resilience. When it comes to the display, the Series 11 carries over the same always-on Retina LTPO3 wide-angle OLED display we saw in the Series 10. Man, that was a really nerdy mouthful. And that's not a bad thing though. Going back to the display though, that's not a bad thing. It's still crisp, vibrant, and ultra responsive, delivering those deep blacks and punchy colors that make Apple Watch faces look incredible. The 2000 nit brightness holds up well in most conditions, but I'll be honest, I was hoping Apple would push it to 3000 nits this year, especially since some competitors already have. Outdoors, under direct sunlight, the Series 11 display can occasionally get a bit hard to see when the glare is really intense. It's not a deal breaker, but it's noticeable if you're used to the higher brightness on the Ultra line. Still, for everyday use, the panel remains one of the most color accurate and fluid screens in the smartwatch world. Performance-wise, Apple stuck with the S10 chip, which might sound disappointing at first, I know, but watchOS 26 makes the whole experience feel more refined. Animations are snappier, scrolling is smoother, and apps open with just a little more immediacy. It's clear Apple spent this generation focusing on optimization and efficiency rather than raw horsepower, and that approach pays off in the real world. The end result is a watch that feels mature and finely tuned, one that proves that sometimes refinement can be just as impactful as innovation. The Series 11 might not have introduced a brand new health sensor this year, but Apple still found clever ways to make wellness feel more personal. The two big upgrades this time around: hypertension notifications and your sleep score. Both work quietly in the background, giving you insights you didn't know you needed until they show up. The hypertension feature isn't meant to replace a blood pressure monitor, but rather to warn you early if your watch detects patterns that could point to elevated blood pressure. It's subtle but very meaningful, the kind of tool that could nudge someone towards a doctor visit they might have otherwise skipped. Meanwhile, Sleep Score gives your nightly rest a numeric grade out of 100, based on how long you slept, how consistent your bedtimes are, and how often you woke up. As someone who likes to lift heavy, I know firsthand that sleep equals gains. For athletes, getting enough rest is just as important as training itself. More sleep means better recovery, sharper focus, and improved performance both physically and mentally. So being able to see those insights in real time helps me spot patterns that could impact how I feel the next day in and out of the gym. But it's not just for athletes. If you're a student or happen to live a busy schedule, your sleep is very, very important. And as being a former university student, I know that my sleep score was absolutely whack, had to be sub 50. So that's why I like the Apple Watch. It's a nice little nudge to improve all aspects of your health. Everything else though remains the same here in terms of health features. ECG, blood oxygen where and if available still, temperature sensing, cycle tracking, all of it feels familiar, but it all feels more unified under the updated Vitals app, which pulls all those readings into a single glanceable view. Together, these refinements don't reinvent Apple's health story, but they make it feel more alive and more like a true wellness companion than ever before. And the hallmark feature, which finally, it only took 11 series of Apple Watches, but for the first time ever, the flagship Apple Watch finally feels unshackled. The Series 11 jumps to an official 24-hour battery life, and as someone who's worn nearly every generation since the beginning, that's honestly huge. It's one of the reasons why I found myself putting my Apple Watch Ultra on my wrist a lot more often, and that's because I had to charge the non-Ultra Apple Watch every single night. This now means no more cutting workouts short, no more deciding between tracking sleep or tracking steps. You can do it all on a single charge. In my own use, I'd have this thing charged up and ready to go at 100 in the morning, wear it through the day, lift in the afternoon, sleep with it on overnight, and still wake up with around 15% left. That's the kind of endurance that genuinely changes how you use this watch. That said, I can't help but feel like this is something we should have had years ago. A full day of battery life should have been the standard long before 2025. And while it's nice to finally get it here, it's still a little underwhelming when you remember that the Apple Watch Ultra line can easily push 3 to 4 days on a single charge. Of course, the Ultra's thicker frame and larger chassis makes that possible, but it still highlights the gap between Apple's flagship and its endurance model. So yes, this is a welcome improvement, but it's still not quite enough to free you from that daily recharge cycle. Eventually, you're still going to have to charge up a little bit throughout your day the next day. On the Series 10, if I woke up at around my usual 8:30 a.m., by the end of the day, after tracking steps, hitting a weightlifting workout, and handling notifications all day, I'd typically finish with only 10 to 20% battery before bed, barely enough to get through the night. But with the Series 11 under the exact same routine, I now end my nights closer to 25 to 30%. Enough where I actually feel confident running full sleep tracking overnight. Apple also added a quick charge boost. 15 minutes on the puck gives you roughly 8 hours of power, and if you ever need to stretch things further, low power mode now extends to about 38 hours. Now with that quick charge boost, you just have to make sure that your power adapter is compatible. It's that perfect blend of convenience and practicality we've been asking for. The best part? Apple didn't have to make the watch thicker or heavier to get here. It's the same familiar design, just optimized to finally keep up with the real world routines. For the first time, I can confidently say the Series 11 doesn't just last the day, it lives the day with you and a little bit extra for the next day. Pretty nice. What really rounds out the Series 11 experience is how connected yet independent it feels. With 5G now built in, this is the first flagship Apple Watch that truly keeps up when you leave your phone behind. Music streaming, calls, maps, everything just feels faster, cleaner, and more reliable than before. You don't realize how big that is until you're out for a run or mid-workout at the gym and your watch doesn't skip a beat. Apple also sprinkled in a few quality of life touches with watchOS 26 that quietly elevates the daily experience. The new wrist flick gesture lets you clear notifications with a single motion, while Flow and Exactograph watch faces give the display a fresh personality. There's even real-time message translation, which comes in clutch when you're traveling or chatting across languages. None of these alone are headline grabbing, but together they make using the watch feel more natural, more alive. In everyday life, the Series 11 finally feels confident on its own. Whether I'm out lifting, running errands, or just unplugging from my phone for a while, it handles everything I need, smoothly, reliably, and without compromises. It's the kind of subtle maturity that shows Apple doesn't need to reinvent the wheel every single year. Sometimes perfecting the ride is just enough. So here's where I land on the Apple Watch Series 11. It's not the kind of upgrade that screams for attention, but it is the kind that earns your respect the more you use it. The 24-hour battery finally frees the flagship from its nightly leash. The new health tools add meaningful awareness, and that better 5G connection makes it feel more independent than ever before. If you're rocking a Series 9 or older, this is the one to get, no question. But if you already own a Series 10, it really comes down to how much you value endurance and subtle refinement. Personally, after a few weeks of testing, the Series 11 feels like the most balanced Apple Watch yet. Mature, reliable, and tuned for real life. So is the Series 11 revolutionary? Not really. But it's reliable, polished, and quietly confident. And sometimes that's exactly what the best tech should be. So guys, that was my review on the Series 11, and since I've worn Apple Watches since the Series 2, this is your go-to channel for all things Apple Watch, but not just that. We still have a lot in the pipeline, including doing reviews on all the new M5 iPads, the new MacBooks, and I always like to wait a little bit to do my reviews on the iPhones. The initial hype sometimes gets people to FOMO in, but I like to take my time specifically on the iPhones and then give my opinions on them after I've had some time with them. So guys, if you own a Series 11, 10, or 9, let me know in the comments below. If you're coming from an older model and are planning to upgrade, like I said, this is a very solid jump up, especially now finally, since it now has that 24-hour battery. So guys, let me know what you all think down below. More band videos to come. Ultra 3 review coming up soon after this one. And with that, I'm clocking out for now, but I cannot wait to catch you all in the next one.